Good morning, everybody. I'm Gustavo from Brazil. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been talking to Raul and Susan for a while. We've kind of been flirting around the Eyes on the Sea Rise project since last year. So it's a great pleasure to be here. I work for Info Amazonia, but I have many hats as well. I'm a former ICFJ Knight Fellow as well. I'm now working with the Earth Journalism Network. I don't know if you heard about this project. It's a very interesting project, which is hosted by Internews, also a media development organization. But what I'm going to talk to you about it today, it's pretty much about how we developed the Info Amazonia and how this helped us to create a model of digital journalists, let's say, or innovation for other partners in different parts of the world. But let me start telling you about the story about the Info Amazonia. I'm, as much of you, a journalist working on several media outlets for 14 years now, actually. And I started covering environment and without any intention of being a data journalist or an innovator. But because we have to deal with so much data about deforestation or forest fire in the Amazon, I kind of turned myself into a data journalist. So when I started doing my ICFJ Knight Fellowship as a data journalist, I actually didn't consider myself a data journalist, just a journalist working with data. But now that's how they call me, a data journalist. But the thing about data actually started with this thing here, the Amazon. So this is the Amazon, 9 countries, 7 million square kilometers, lots of problems, 300 different tribes, many languages. So how do you cover such a thing, which so big area, so many problems? And we found out that things like this were very useful. So this was the start of everything of Info Amazonia. When we started to look to databases of satellite imagery from NASA and other space agencies around the world, and we saw that everything was free, and things like this were very, very useful to tell the audience the problems that we are reporting. Like this one, like forest fires, is such a huge scale problem in the Amazon, and how to explain that something that happens in the north of Brazil actually affects the Argentina. So what you might have seen, like we have this drought in São Paulo going on now, has a close relation with the Amazon, and actually you can visualize this by using satellite imagery. But this was not enough. So for really telling the good story, we realized that we need more than that. And one of the most important things, and I think this is a common point being made here, is like that you need a community behind the news you are creating. So the very first thing that we started when we decided to create Info Amazonia, although it wasn't called that way at that point in 2008, 2009, it was to create a network of journalists and citizens. And why citizens? Because citizens in this case is not the citizen journalists as we usually talk. It's like networks of researchers, network of community leaders that engage with journalists would help us to tell better that story. So we started doing things like this, like trainings like this one we did in 2011 with the team of the Google Earth Outreach, where we would take journalists from these 9 countries. In this case, we have 30 journalists from 6 different countries in Ecuador, teaching them how to download satellite imagery, how to use GPS, how to tell stories using maps, how to interpret the data on deforestation and other environmental threats of the Amazon. And we start calling this practice at that point kind of a fancy brand geojournalism, but nowadays this makes a lot of sense for us, and you will see why, because we realize that if we organize this network as data producers, let's say your stories are data, we could relate these stories with the satellite data. So it means like the stories are giving context to the data, and the data is kind of creating context for the stories. So that's idea of overlaying journalists over satellite data, what we see as digital maps, is very powerful. And nowadays we really pushing forward for this concept of geojournalism. And of course, I won't be long on this because we've been listening this a lot today, that it was key to involve the hacker community and creating these teams of professionals of different backgrounds. So this is an example of something that we did recently, was a hackathon about water issues in São Paulo. And it was really, really rich because we made both applications with this team here on the left, and we have other teams working with hardware because we're working also with sensors. So we're not talking only about aggregating data anymore, but also producing our own data. And the result of everything is more or less like this. This is a traditional Info Amazonia page where we have the satellite data overlaid by many stories. So nowadays we have almost 2,000 stories aggregated, and some or more of them, most of them produced by ourselves or by our partners. So we've been working, like the model of geojournalism, let's say, is like aggregating everything we could find or visualize in terms of data, and then aggregating publishers. So we do like kind of agreements of different publishers to geotag their stories. So that's the value that we are trying to push with geojournalism, is like aggregating coordinates to stories to create this database of stories that can be related with data. But, as I'm talking so much about data, of course we need to go much further than just like doing a fancy interactive map. And people are asking us, like, what kind of analysis you do with all this data that you have. We have 30 years of deforestation data. We have all the hydroelectric dams for the 9 countries, all the mining concessions, all the oil concessions, roads, what else? Forest fires. We have a lot of indigenous territories, protected areas, and we keep aggregating. So far, we have 14 gigabytes of data storage in Info Amazonia, and we want to go much beyond, like creating linked data files and other services related to data. So we started doing things a little bit more advanced in analysis. So this is a 2-year analysis of forest fires in the Amazon, animated, which if you keep seeing and with the context of the story, we would know that which are the seasons of forest fires in the Amazon and what are the climate and other impacts of it. This is like very simple thing to do. Maybe tomorrow in the hackathon I can teach you how to do this using CartoDB. It's like 5 minutes, maybe you do something like this, but gave us a lot of press. Like we were in Business Insider last week. We were like in many like mainstream media outlets with this simple visualization. And we want to do more. Like, so we were doing things like this, like relating deforestation with like social data. These are the data of officials of Brazilian Ministry of Work or Labor, where they rescue people in situation of modern or contemporary slavery, which we were trying to show how this is related with the issue of advancing new frontiers in the Amazon. But the problem is, with a map like this, people are like, wow, if I don't put the legend and I tell them this is actually people that were working as slaves in the Amazon, people are very shocked with that. But very quick we got the question, let me see the time, I need to go faster. We got the questions, what about the real statistics behind this? Like, can you correlate really like areas of deforestation with the number of people working as slaves? This gets much more difficult. So we get into the point where we have to improve our capacity of doing statistical analysis to make the point of these visualizations, of these data visualizations. So this is one that we actually try to do this a little bit more. So we're getting data on water and sanitation access in the Amazon, which is a great story because it's the place in the world would have more fresh water, but it's the place where we have more people with water disease because there is no treatment of the water, the access to sanitation is so bad. So we took all the cities of the Brazilian Amazon and kind of overlay with data from the Ministry of Health to show how these problems are related. So we did news apps with something that we've been working probably here in the university, of the idea of like telling news by building an app. It's not just like you're doing a visualization, but you're doing a full tool for telling the stories you are doing. And we're going much further, again, trying to do our own data sets. So in the Amazon, we won't have this data about the water quality in real time or updated. And so we submitted a proposal for these awards from Google last year, and we were lucky enough to, or crazy enough, to won this award of creating a water quality sensor. And you might ask, like, what the hell, you're a journalist, what, you're building a sensor? What are you doing? And so we put a couple of hackers together, and we're doing a real research and talking with like experts on water quality, and working with the public lab in the MIT to do one single project to further develop one sensor that they already have. It's called the rifle, which is really simple. It's more like an alert of water quality problems that we're going to deploy now in July in one city in the Amazon. And we'll try to create a much more granular data set to mix, again, with this idea of the geojournalist creating a new layer of information for InfoAmazonia. I'll go quick. Everything we do for sharing. So this is our model. So we built this, what we call like a distribution widget, which allows us to get all these maps, all these data, all these stories that we aggregated and give to other people, mainly media outlets. So you can choose a map here, what kind of stories you want, and you get the traditional iframe thing to embed on your blog. That's the way we're distributing our stories. That's the way we're getting audience. So we have a partnership with the biggest portal in Brazil, Wall, and other media in Peru and Colombia. We want them to use our maps. That's our thing. And all the knowledge that we aggregated on this kind of same track of sharing everything, we hosting in another platform that we kind of relaunched last week. It's called the geojournalist.org. I invite you to know that, where you find things like how to choose the colors of your map, how to do, how to download satellite imagery, how to do like this kind of maps, where to find the environmental data. So we do tutorials, and also we feature other geojournalist projects around the world, because that became our main thing. We started to reproduce the same kind of model of InfoAmazonia and other projects. So along with it, that was the important thing about working with hackers. I'm finishing. We created, along with InfoAmazonia, a software, or like a WordPress platform, let's say, which allows other people to use other themes, other issues with the same methodology. So the first project we did was in South Africa with a great investigative journalist called Fiona, which maps rhino poaching in the national parks of South Africa. So you have the map, you have the stories over it. We did another project in Indonesia. It's very similar to InfoAmazonia. It's called Equatorial Maps, deforestation, forest fire, amazing things like this. This is a map of with 9 million records of marine traffic in the Java Sea. So this is a big data set and very well visualized, where we tell the stories and the data at the same time. And the geojournalism thing is now proving to be very useful, because out of all these tools, we created an API of stories. And these stories are, for the first time, being broadcasted to another platform. The Global Forest Watch is reading stories from the Amazon and from Equatorial. So these points that you see here, like our GeoJSON real-time feeds into another platform. So we want this as a model of distribution. And with EGN, we do have the chance of doing this. These are the map of the 5,000 members that the Earth Journalists Network has around the world. We're building new platforms in the Congo region, in the Himalayas, and the Mekong region, which all will feed also with GeoJSON files of geotag stories into other platforms. And I won't go into this, unfortunately, but for the same network, we're distributing the first hardware product done by EGN in partnership with our lab in Brazil, which is the Dustuino, which is a sensor of air quality. On the same way, we're going to kind of give to these journalists around the world a hardware thing that will transmit data into other platforms. That's more or less how it looks. It's like my friend was saying, a kind of a IKEA furniture model thing that you just like assemble. You bought one of those. We'll start selling this thing in 2 months, $75. You get one at your home, connect to internet, starts broadcasting air quality data, particulate matter. And that's it. Thank you.